Hi, and welcome to Healthy Kingston. My name is Janet Wade, and I would like to first introduce you to Jean Naumann, who is a former selectman, and she is a member of the Recycling Committee here in Kingston. And being that spring is right around the corner, she's going to tell us about an Earth Day event that's coming up in mid-April.
Thank you, Janet. Thanks for having me here today. The Recycling Committee welcomes everyone in the community to come join us to celebrate Earth Day. We're going to have programs going on April 20th, which is a Saturday, at the transfer station. We'll be set up right in front of the recycling bins. Okay. We'll have a table with informational pamphlets and brochures. We're also going to be giving every attendee a free reusable shopping bag.
All right.
That says Kingston Recycles, because we're certainly urging everyone to use reusable bags instead of plastic bags. And we're also going to have a demonstration on composting. Dot McFarlane has volunteered to show people how you can compost in your own backyard. Which could further reduce the amount of trash that you're throwing away, because 30 to 40% of our trash is actually biologic material. You know, apple cores, peels, banana peels, leftover vegetables, any kind of vegetation. So people can further reduce their trash by recycling.
Okay. Thank you so much for being here.
All right.
Everyone remember Earth Day? April
20th
at the recycling station.
Yes, and please stop by to see us as well as our swap shop.
Great. Thanks, Jean.
All right.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
April is National Organ Donation Month. The National Donate Life Registry is managed by Donate Life America, and you can find it online. Currently, there are over 113,000 men, women, and children who are waiting for organ transplants in the United States. One organ donor can save up to 8 lives, and every 10 minutes another name is added to the National Organ Transplant waiting list. Sadly, an average of 20 people die each day because the organs they need are not donated in time. I am very pleased to welcome a nursing colleague of mine and a friend, Dr. Maria Vazquez, who is an organ donor. But she is a graduate of the University of Massachusetts, Dartmouth. Her dissertation explored the experiences of living kidney donors. She has published and presented on this topic, and her nursing career spans many decades, as does mine. It includes roles in direct patient care and teaching public health nursing. She is a wife, a mother, a daughter, and a loving sister to several siblings. So Maria, thank you very much about being here to talk to us about your account of being a living kidney donor and what that has entailed for you and for your family. So I'd like to start out with, how does one become an organ donor?
Well, the first thing that you want to consider is the question of why you want to be an organ donor. In my case, I was exposed to organ donation through my husband, who was diagnosed in 2011 with chronic kidney disease. It's a terminal illness that requires eventually to have dialysis and can be life-threatening. And as a result of that, I started looking into what the whole living donor process is. As I became more in tune with what that entailed, I said, why not give it a shot? The odds were good that it would save his life and certainly improve mine. So,
tremendously courageous. What exactly is the selection process? Can you tell us a little bit about that in being a donor?
Well, as far as the selection process, once you've made that decision, you'll basically be going through a number of different diagnostic tests to make sure that you're well enough, healthy enough to donate. They don't want to put you at risk for something that they can find during that time.
Sure.
So sure enough, you'll go through diagnostic testing. It'll probably take several months before you can get cleared. as a donor.
Really? Several months?
Several months.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is something you have to anticipate.
Anticipate, right?
Yeah.
It's not anything that's short term. In fact, when we had our surgeries, it was 2 years after he had been diagnosed.
Wow.
Okay.
I did not realize that.
And not so much because of the diagnostic testing. I had been cleared early on, but we had to wait till his illness progressed to end-stage renal disease, where he would have been going on dialysis if the donation had not come through.
Oh, okay. What did you have to consider as a donor in making the decision?
Well, as I started to mention, the most important thing is to really do a little soul searching and think about, you know, can you give it away unconditionally and not have any strings attached, okay? The other thing is you need to be able to understand that there is no guarantee that it's going to work.
Right.
There is absolutely no guarantee that it's going to work, even under the best conditions and when the donor and the recipient are well matched. So can you live with that if the donated organ is rejected?
Right. Plus, we were talking earlier, and you mentioned, which shocked me, I mean, sometimes the donor will be the one who will pass during the experience, and the recipient lives.
Exactly, right. Yeah, it really is soul-searching, and in some ways, even facing, you know, your own existential mortality.
Right. Yeah. Are you prepared? Are you prepared physically and emotionally? Do you have support in going through this process?
Yeah, once you've decided to be tested as a candidate, then you'll be assigned a living donor advocate through the transplant center.
Okay.
And basically what their sole role is to be your advocate, to help you through the process and to basically listen to your concerns and address those concerns. So you're not really going through it alone.
Okay.
However, you do want to make sure that you do have a good support system that'll help you.
Oh, absolutely.
Because even though from a physical standpoint, most donors are in good physical shape, and chances are that they'll continue to be that way. It's really the emotional and the psychological act of giving a part of yourself, even when it's for a great cause,
Sure.
that can be very impactful.
Absolutely. Can you tell us then a little bit about the surgery and the recuperative process that you go through after you've had it?
Well, there are basically two types of surgery to have a kidney donation. It could either be done laparoscopically, which entails a few small incisions in your abdomen. Here I am showing you. Here it is. A few small incisions in your abdomen, or the old-fashioned way, as sometimes it's called, the iconic flank incision, which is, you know, quite extensive. And depending on the type of surgery that you have, then certainly, understandably, the longer it may take to recuperate.
Right.
I was in the hospital. I had the laparoscopic procedure, and I was in the hospital for about 3 days total. And the average is about 2 days for most donors. And basically during that time, you're given fluids and pain medicine if you need it, nausea medicine, those things that happen unfortunately after surgery.
Right.
They get you up and moving, and that's really the most important thing that you want to do, is really get up and moving after surgery. Depending on the type of work that you do, it may take you a couple of weeks to get back to work, or it could take several months. Mm-hmm. As a nurse, I was restricted from lifting for about 3 months, so I couldn't do any type of nursing that would entail that lifting piece.
Right.
But other than that, most people will get back to work, and you know, relatively quickly.
Yeah, could you, I remember after you had the surgery and you did very well physically. Can you speak to the emotion part of this. Emotionally, how did you feel after you had?
Well, I think
through
for
this?
me, it was probably one of the most empowering events in my life, in that, you know, I had to come to terms with making that decision and then sustaining the courage to follow through with it.
Right.
Because no one really likes to think about having surgery and what that entails.
Sure.
So I think once you make that decision, and I think that's the biggest part of it, do you want to be tested? Can you feel that you could go through with it?
Right. And then you did it. My gosh, you did it.
Did it, and
What an achievement.
what a grateful feeling that is, to know that we were very fortunate that my husband Patrick has been doing fantastic, you know.
And it was several years ago.
And we actually donated together. Our kidneyversary is December 17th, 2013.
Oh.
So, yeah, and
Wow,
we're both
time
doing
flies.
well.
I
Yeah.
didn't- yeah, I
And
knew
it does
had been a
take
while
time
ago.
to recuperate. Just to get back to that question, if I may, it does take time. You are not going to be like you were prior to the surgery. The existing kidney, remaining kidney, will grow and will try to meet the demands of your body, but it will never be working at the capacity that two healthy kidneys can do.
Right.
So in some ways, as a donor, you do have to make a lifelong commitment to be good to yourself, to take good care of yourself, to manage your weight, to watch your blood pressure, because the two major causes of chronic kidney disease are diabetes and hypertension.
Okay.
So it's really essential that you continue doing what you were doing before the donation,
Right.
and really follow through with that afterwards.
Okay. Now that good sense. Anything else that you've learned that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, I wanted to make a point to say that it's not a process that happens overnight. It does include that diagnostic testing, the actual logistics around that testing, and certainly preparing for time off from work. There are, you know, many employers will offer some type of paid medical leave to donors, so you may want to check that out, that type of thing.
It's not an easy decision to make.
It's not an easy decision.
Very thought-provoking. And I
Very.
would imagine a process. A process.
Yeah, and I think it starts with understanding why you want to do it, and certainly in my case, I wanted to make sure that he would be around
Right.
to enjoy the rest of our lives together.
Together.
So that was the impetus for me to look at what that entails.
Right.
And thankfully, I was healthy enough to be able to provide that. So it's also a blessing in many ways.
Well, thank you so much for your time, for your experience, the fact that you're a nurse and you can help people, you know, think about the importance of doing this and what to think about if you feel you want to be a donor, and what you have to go through physically. All of that's tremendously helpful
Yeah.
and hopefully inspirational.
Yeah, and the other thing, if I may add, is that, you know, in my case, I knew who my recipient would be. There are many people that are choosing to donate anonymously, and they may never know who that recipient is.
Right.
Those are people that will, in many cases, start chains of transplants between incompatible pairs. And just to touch upon that matching, ideally you want someone that is your own blood type, okay, or the recipient's blood type, and also that they have a number of matches in the tissue typing categories.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Makes sense.
also very helpful. So that brings to mind that most family members are usually the first to be considered.
Makes
Okay,
sense.
however, in our case, and we're testament that it doesn't have to be a family member.
Right.
The other thing is, if you have a recipient that for whatever reason you'd like to donate, but you're not a match, you know, then you can be considered into what they call a kidney paired donation program, where you might donate to someone else and they would donate to your loved one. So even if you're not compatible, there is ways to get around that in this
Terrific.
day and age.
Terrific. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I am really looking forward to introducing you to our next speaker, who is not only an award-winning book author, but has turned out to be a very good friend of mine. I want to introduce you all to Kristin Jarvis Adams, who is the author of The Chicken Who Saved Us, the remarkable story of Andrew and Frightful. And this is about the journey that she and her husband John and daughter Hannah and son Andrew have gone through, as far as dealing with his autism, the impact on the family, dealing with a very deadly disease, and how they've come through the other side. So being that April is Autism Awareness Month, I thought that this would be a wonderful opportunity for Kristin to come in and join us. So welcome.
Thank you
It's
for
wonderful to
having
have
me.
you here. Kristin, first off, can you enlighten us? What is autism?
Yes, autism is a huge spectrum. In our experience, my son is pretty typical for someone with autism. It's usually somebody who has some neurological delay, people, young children having difficulty with eye contact. There's also rigidity in thinking, and it's very, very difficult to make transitions, or they become hyper-focused on certain things. And also for children and adults with autism, getting into a community and making and nurturing friendships can be extremely difficult.
When did you first notice these symptoms in your son?
You know, in retrospect, I think we noticed these symptoms right away. Even as a baby, he was very rigid. He did not want to be held. He didn't want to be swaddled or cuddled. He did not make eye contact when most babies were, you know, staring at their parents or responding in a certain way. He would kind of squeeze his eyes shut or look away. And I knew that there was something wrong, but I didn't have a name for it.
Tell me, I was very surprised when I heard the statistics. Can you speak to that?
Yes, so autism, the statistics for autism is almost like a tidal wave that's happened in the last 20 years. My son Andrew was born in 1993, and at that time the incidence of autism was about 1 in 10,000. Today, according to Autism Speaks, it's about 1 in 48 in boys, and it's about 1 in 150 or so for girls. So it is a massive difference. It is a huge issue that is affecting not only our school systems, but our communities, and how to teach, include, and integrate these young adults now that are coming of age into our communities.
Absolutely. Wow. Well, getting back to you and your family, and particularly Andrew, so fast forward to 8 years old.
Yes, so when Andrew was 8, he was speaking very little, very few words. I was kind of like the translator or decoder of what he was speaking, and an extraordinary thing happened. He befriended a baby chick, and he picked her up from a bin of baby chicks and walked up to us and said, "She's my new best friend. She will save me."
Wow.
And that was the first time I had heard a very direct and eye contact, complete sentence from my son. And really from there on out, this extraordinary relationship with the animal, with this bird, created an opportunity for us to kind of sneak behind the veil of autism and get to know our son in an entirely different way.
So what were you hearing him relay to the bird, say to the bird that you picked up on?
Yeah, he spent every waking hour with her, getting up in the morning before we were up and his younger sister was getting ready for school. He was running out to the hen house, tucking her under his arm, usually sitting on the front porch and just having a back and forth conversation. The bird talked back, he talked, and mostly he was sharing kind of his innermost feelings with her, and he was telling her about his day, telling her about what he anticipated school would be like, maybe the things that he was struggling with. And there was one time when he was just about 9 years old and he was sitting on the porch. He named his bird Frightful. And he was sitting on the front porch and I had the door cracked open and I could hear him say, "Frightful, I think my body is trying to kill me."
Wow. Yeah, what a thing for a mother to have to hear.
It was a very difficult thing. And at first I didn't believe that that's what I had heard. And then I went on listening to this conversation and really had no frame of reference for what that meant. And that opened yet another door for us for the next 8 to 10 years where he was communicating with Frightful and we were trying to figure out really what was going on inside of his body. He had developed this mysterious disease that none of the doctors were able to figure out what was going on. Yet in some way, I believe Frightful knew or Frightful understood, and Andrew certainly made an effort to describe that to Frightful.
Well, and I remember, and I know you've told me that you and the doctors spoke through Frightful to get the answers.
Yes.
To talk about that a little bit.
Yes, so at one point, by the time he was 16, he was so ill that he was admitted to Seattle Children's Hospital, and he was there kind of for the duration while they were frantically trying to figure out how to help him and really what the underlying issue was, what this disease was. He was not talking or communicating with the doctors and very, very little communicating with us. So his younger sister, being very clever, decided to hook an iPad. We wired it to the outside of the chicken coop, put a second iPad in his hospital bed, and then started a FaceTime connection.
That's tremendous. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he would talk to the bird, and amazingly, Frightful hadn't seen him for a while, and when he started talking through the FaceTime connection, she stood up and listened and was responding to him. And it allowed the doctors to be able to talk to Andrew through Frightful. They could ask in the third person and say, "How is Frightful doing today? Where does she hurt? What is going on with Frightful?" And Andrew would describe what was going on with him, but through Frightful.
That's tremendous. So the condensed version of this scenario is he was in the hospital for, what, well over a year.
Yes.
And you and John, you and your husband were there day to day with him, 24/7.
Yes.
And it did get extremely serious, and he almost did die. Can you speak a little to that?
Yes. It did get very tense. We got to the point where there were discussions about taking him home on hospice care, or there were a few doctors within the Seattle area that had some ideas, kind of thinking outside the box, and had discovered some things about Andrew clinically that showed that there was a possibility that a bone marrow transplant might reverse the illness that
Okay.
he was suffering from.
All right, and we'll leave the suspense there because you need to purchase the book. But some final remarks, I'd love to hear from you what lessons learned you got from this experience. I'm sure there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and what you would like to share with our viewing audience as far as having a special needs child and words of wisdom in being able to deal in that situation, being effective.
Yes, there were a litany of lessons that we learned, but the primary thing that I think I took out of it is we discovered that we can find hope in totally unexpected places. For my son, his touch point and his hope was really through his bird Frightful. For us, hope came out of this community that just welled up out of seemingly nowhere and supported our family and supported us through this journey in a way that was remarkable. I think the biggest thing that I discovered is when I was willing to become vulnerable and ask for help, the help that came was, it was just floods of people coming out of the woodwork and
great.
helping us and walking with us through the journey.
There are angels everywhere.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
including in a little feathered friend.
Right. So definitely a wonderful woman, family, Andrew. Tremendous book. I strongly encourage you to look for it on Amazon. And Westwind's bookstore has it as well. The Chicken Who Saved Us, the remarkable story of Andrew and Frightful. Thank you so much, Kristin, for being with us.
Thank you for having
Appreciate
me.
it.